So there's 70 to $100 trillion exchanging hands right now. And if you didn't know that, you could be robbed.
Most people spend more time planning a vacation than they do even planning their own financial life. That's just absolutely crazy.
If you don't have a goalpost, you'll miss it every time.
What do I want this to look like 100 years from now when I'm no longer here? If we don't schedule something on the calendar, then when are we going to talk?
I want to give you a picture. Like, close your eyes and think about. So there's 70 to $100 trillion exchanging hands right now. And if you didn't know that, you could be robbed. You could be in the middle of this heist. And I just want to start off today's episode. You're probably asking, like, how do I protect? How do I even know if I'm going to lose this wealth? Am I part of this heist? Because we're the watchmen on the wall here at Kingdom ROI, we developed a resource called the Great Wealth Heist Assessment. You can look for the link in the description. Go fill this out, and you'll get a good sense of where you are in this great wealth heist. And we would love to have a conversation with you about it once you fill out. So go fill it out today. Look in the description, press the link, and protect yourself, guard yourself, and to make sure you have 100+ years of abundance and impact. So, Eric, how are you doing today?
I'm good. Actually, so just to give you a little bit of more information, I was with a group yesterday at the Museum of the Bible, and there have been some estimates that the number's as high as 140 trillion.
100. My mind can't even compute.
No, we were there. Everybody, that was what was running around the room. It's like, what's the number? Is it 80 to 60 to 100 trillion, which is what we've been saying? And the guy leading the group, Bill High, who some people will know, he said he's heard as high as 140 trillion.
$140 trillion.
Yeah.
That is mind blowing.
Over the next 25 years.
Over the next 25 years. Wow. And that leads to the topic today. So today we've been talking about this great wealth heist. I think this is episode 4 of this particular series. And if you're just joining us today on this episode, I encourage you to go back and watch the previous 3 episodes, because we've been just unveiling this wealth heist, and we've been talking about how do you guard against it and protect against it. And today we're going to talk about something that Eric founded, is the Kingdom ROI Method. Eric, what is this Kingdom ROI Method?
Well, the Kingdom ROI Method was born out of, so I've had this, I'm a visionary. The biggest problem of being a visionary is you have vision and idea for something, but expressing it is sometimes hard. And so I had a gentleman who was a good friend who was like, hey, I kind of understand what you're saying, but could you make this simpler for me? Could you really just kind of put this into a way that I could explain this to other people? And so it was in a lot of prayer and a lot of just digging into how do we say this better? Because at the end of the day, you and I have talked about this. It really is about helping a family create 100+ years of abundance and impact.
Correct.
And so why is that so important? Well, we have people that we have relationships with during our lifetime. But if we look scripturally, the opportunity inside of Psalms, it actually says there's an opportunity to go for 5 generations. 5 generations is about 100+ years, so where do we come up with 100+ years? That's how we kind of get this entire idea, is like, what would it look like? And what we know is that we won't be here any longer.
Right.
So there is a different approach that you have to take when you plan for a lifetime, or you plan for maybe your grandchildren or the people that you're going to see, than you have to do to plan for the really 100+ years. And the other thing that we talk about, right, is that only less than 10% of families succeed. So if we know that less than 10% of families are succeeding, then what are the families that are doing the right things doing? And so it was trying to dig into what are the things that they are doing? What's a way we could express that in a formula? And at the end of the day, I kept coming back to, we are Kingdom ROI. So could I find a way to express it in the ROI? And could we create an ROI formula? And that's exactly what we ended up creating, which is it's relationships times optimization equals intention. So if your intention is to go for 100+ years, then it's relationships times optimization is how you get there. And so that is the formula at its simplest basis, but I'm looking forward to us really unpacking it because it's so much deeper and so much more to it.
Right. And to give our listeners context, so Eric, you've been on this journey for 20 plus years of studying the 90%, but also studying and helping families become the 10%.
That's right.
So we've seen firsthand of that, what that 70% of destruction of wealth looks like in the second generation, and the 90% that you just described in the third generation. And let me ask you this. I want you to just be honest.
Yeah.
And I know you're not going to lie to us, but is it possible? So for the person listening today who God has blessed them to build wealth, is it possible for that to happen? Is that for the average family, or do you have to be the wealthiest of the wealthy? And help us understand.
Yeah, no, I think it's possible for everyone, but it takes work and it takes intention.
Yes.
Right? You don't accidentally do this.
Right.
There's a lot of different videos we'll have coming out. I've had a chance to visit with some of our younger advisors on a video we'll have coming out just talking about what it looks like to actually build a plan. And the number one thing that most people don't realize is most people spend more time planning a vacation than they do even planning their own financial life. Yes. I mean, that's much less anything else. Spend more time planning a vacation than they spend planning how they're going to be disciplined for finances for their life. And I'm like, that's just absolutely crazy. And then, so take that and compound on top of that. So you got to be intentional about that. And what we would say is the financial sits inside of the optimization. That's why our relationships times optimization. Optimization is your financial optimization. And we'll talk more about that.
Right.
But so people are not even focused on that, but there's a relational component. So the 10% of families who succeed focus on the relationships. When they talk to the 90% and ask them why things failed, it actually wasn't the optimization that failed.
Right.
It was the relationships that failed. So thinking about that, now you've got to be even more intentional, right, about how you pour into the relationship side of things. And it's why, I'll make just a plug for Taya, who works for us in a lot of the resources. If you haven't gotten our newsletter, reach out to us and let us get you a copy of the newsletter, because it's got a bunch of different resources inside of that. But I know Taya is going to be coming out with more and more family type resources to help families work on relationships. And so go back to answer your question. It definitely is possible. You have to be intentional. But the greatest example of that for me was my own grandmother, who was very intentional about how she poured into my life and into me, and the way that she raised me and took me to church and disciplined me and loved me. And all I have left are a recliner that I purchased with the money she left to me, and my memories. But her legacy lives on. Why? Because she was intentional about the relational side of things. So the answer is yes. You can be very intentional.
Yeah.
Actually, am I? Yeah, I'm wearing my grandfather's wedding band.
That's amazing.
Right now.
Wow.
So depending on how my hands swell up or not, there's a discussion for another time. From some stupid workout stuff that I've done, I switch back and forth from the wedding band that Angel gave to me versus my grandfather's wedding band.
Wow.
Fits me today. And so it's little things like that. And it's just a wedding band, right? It's a simple piece of gold. If you were to see, this is not fancy, but this was my grandfather's.
Yeah. And another shameless plug, if you haven't heard the Kingdom ROI podcast episode with Eric and Angel, talking about his grandmother and the legacy that she left behind, I want you to go check that out, because it's so powerful. We're doing all kind of CTAs in this episode. Just go subscribe to all of our channels. We have so much great content that we're putting a lot of thought into, and it's all to add value to this return on intention mindset. Yeah. And I think it's appropriate that we started this conversation off talking about the intention part, because it's the concept of beginning with the end in mind.
Absolutely.
If you don't know where you want to be or where you're going, it's hard to build a process to get there.
That's right.
If you don't have a goalpost, you'll miss it every time.
That's right.
So let's, now that we started with the intention, let's go back to the beginning of the equation. Let's talk about relationships.
Well, can we talk about, I want to talk about optimization first. And here's the only,
all right, we're working backwards.
No. Well, the reason I want to talk about optimization is optimization, and we talked about the Great Wealth Heist. If you want to know why there's a great wealth heist underway, is because most of the world will communicate to you that the most important thing you need to focus on is your optimization. Did you get your legal docs done? Did you get your taxes done? Did you get your, did you get your investments right? And it's all this focus on the optimization, which is a distraction from what you truly want. But the other thing too that we've talked about in some of our other episodes, and I don't want to spend too much time here, is when you get so focused on optimization, you actually unintentionally make optimization like the priority or the God, right? And so the priority is having more money. The priority is building up more. And it's not that God doesn't want us to have more, but God does not want us to replace what we have with him. And so we start putting our trust in the stuff that we have, which leads us to, we've talked about this, a scarcity mindset. So we're constantly making decisions out of fear and trying to figure out how we're going to protect what we have, when God is a God of abundance.
Yes.
And the life that God wants for us is abundance, peace, so that we can make an impact for him and for his kingdom. He wants us to rest in peace. So he doesn't bless us with stuff to cause more fear or anxiety or whatever inside of our lives. And so if you ever find yourself in a place where you're dealing with finances or thinking about money in a way that's anxious or a way that causes fear, or you're constantly thinking about protection, I would actually ask you to stop and say, wait a minute, am I prioritizing the optimization instead of what God wants for me inside of this? And that's again, having been in this business 20 plus years, I mean, I'll get 10 emails plus while we're sitting in here on people trying to sell me on products I need to take to my clients that are based on protection and fear. So, the entire mindset of the industry is, well, we've got to protect our clients, and here are all the things you need to worry about, and here's what could go wrong. And so how do we protect you from all the things that could go wrong? And I'm not saying that we don't need to be smart or intelligent, but if God is who he said he is, and he is a God of abundance, then his protection and his provision should be in place. So do we trust him to be who he says he is, or do we feel like we have to fill that role on his behalf? And that's the danger of just leaning so hard into the optimization side of this. And so we can go talk about relationships now, but I mean, the reason that this formula is so important is, if you're not careful, not only will you miss the intention, the 100 plus years, but you'll miss the relationship side, and you'll spend so much time focused on it'll destroy your peace, while at the same time, you'll miss the mark of what you were trying to do. And you may pile up a whole lot of money and be miserable, which is what we don't want.
Exactly. And remember, folks, we're talking about the 10% of people who are positioning themselves to have 100 plus years of abundance and impact. 10% of the people who are avoiding this wealth heist that's happening. And what I hear you saying, Eric, is that the formula is incomplete if it's just O equals intention. That's not the formula.
Well, it's not the formula because O doesn't equal intention. But, right.
Right.
I mean, it doesn't even equal impact. I don't even know. We'd have to come up with another I. Both of you and I like to follow pastor, so we could come up with another I maybe. But to me, it's the unintended consequences that flow out of only focus on optimization.
That's right. So now let's talk about the R in the formula and why this is so important, and help us understand, Eric, why this is so overlooked.
Yeah, because I think at the end of the day, here's the hardest part about relationships. Sometimes you don't know what I don't want to say the damage. It is the damage. Sometimes you don't know the unintended consequences of what you've done inside of a relationship till a year later, 3 years later, 5 years later. Something you don't know. Have you ever said a word to someone and offended them, and you had no idea you offended them?
I have a couple of funny stories about that, but that's for another time.
Well, I've never done that, so maybe you can tell me about it, right? No, right? We do this all the time. But it doesn't show up because the person who has the offense just holds on to it or pushes it to the side or whatever. If you make a mistake on your taxes, if you make a mistake on your investments, like it jumps out in your face.
Right.
And that is the problem with the relationship side of this thing, is we like try to neglect it or say it's not important, and you can get away with it. You can get away with neglecting it. I mean, you can get away with neglecting your marriage for years. Right? Until it's too late. You can get away with neglecting your kids. There's all sorts of things you can get away with neglecting. You can even get away for a while with neglecting your health if you choose to. And so it's not in your face every single day the way your checkbook is. And so it's so easy for us to do that it takes it's the reason that intention is such an important part of the equation. And you talked about, begin with the end in mind. I don't know. Do you know where that comes from?
Where does that come from?
So it's a book by Stephen Covey called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
Yes. I remember now.
Okay. So this is a book that most people have heard of or put on the shelf. I just started reading it again. And it is amazing how applicable and how ahead of his time he was. I mean, you'll see all sorts of people teaching on different principles of his 7 habits today. I'm like, oh, well, that's what so-and-so says. Oh, this is what so-and-so says. And it's not a faith-based book, but is a faith-rooted book.
Yeah, a lot of biblical principles.
A lot of biblical principles and everything in there. And so this idea, begin with the end in mind, comes from Stephen Covey. But that is exactly what we're talking about in order to create this 100+ years of abundance and impact. And that's what the easy thing is the world will make it really easy for us to only focus on optimization.
Yes.
If you want to come in and set an appointment with a financial advisor, an attorney, a CPA, whatever, and you don't want to have a conversation about intention or relationships, they will let you. They will help you. They will gladly take your money and they will give you all sorts of solutions that probably won't match your intentions and may actually even do damage to your relationships in ways that you don't realize because you're not thinking about that part. And it's not their fault. We've talked about this before because it's the system that's been set up. Our challenge is, what if you took a step back and said, what do I want this to look like 100 years from now when I'm no longer here? When I can't be here anymore, how do I shape and create the world that exists? And then inside of that, what do I need to do to work that backwards? So then who are the most important relationships and how do we start speaking into, it's simple, it's simple, but not, right? How do I start speaking into mission, vision, values? And what's interesting to me is this is very relevant to some conversations that we've been having because even families who we've talked about the ROI formula and they say, yes, I want 100+ years. And then it's easy for the world to distract them right back into the optimization. We had a conversation with the family earlier this week. It's like, well, no, we don't need to do more relationship stuff till the matriarch passes away. Like, what? No, there's relationship and wisdom building needing to happen on a regular basis if you really want to go 100+ years.
Yes. And here's what I would encourage everybody to do is think about the relationships that are most important to you. And I want to give you a picture. Like, close your eyes and think about your funeral. Who's on the front row? Usually the people who are sitting on the front row are the most important relationships in your life. Your spouse, your children, your grandchildren. And think about where you want that relationship to be. And this is why the ROI method is so important, because if you see your marriage being strong and staying united, all of a sudden that desire is going to inform the optimization.
That's right.
Not the other way around.
No, that's right.
The optimization will not dictate what's going on in the marriage. It's what you desire for the marriage. So if you want there to be unity, even amongst your children, think about your relationship with your children. Do you want them to be enabled or empowered? That will inform the optimization. And let's take it to your area of expertise, Eric, with business owners. You have a passion for pouring into business owners. Yeah. When you think about your employees and the future of the company, that will inform whatever vision that is, that vision of health that you have. And hopefully it's a vision of health, right? Not your employees being run into the ground and neglecting their families. But when you have that vision of health, 50, 100+ years, that will inform how you optimize.
Yes.
So speaking to that, Eric, and how even give us a glimpse into your personal life, even as a business owner, how you've set things up to optimize the relationship part of this formula.
Yeah, well, I mean, let's make a real quick statement, and then I'll go talk about this, which is, like, Eric, you guys keep just downplaying optimization. Isn't it important to optimize, to truly optimize? The answer is absolutely. Yes. We think optimization is super important. The question is, what's driving your optimization? Is the world view and fear and protection driving your optimization? or is God's view of intention and impact and peace? Is that what's driving your optimization? And what we found to be true is families who truly get this ROI formula end up with better optimization.
Yes.
The optimization gets cleaner, it gets easier, it gets a whole lot more clear because we know where we're going for 100 plus years, as opposed to we're just guessing in some sort of kind of ambiguous place. And so we're not saying that optimization isn't important. What we're saying is put it in its right place. Because when you put it in its right place, it gets easier, it gets clearer, and you get more unity around it. If you are ever a person, a business owner, or a family who has ever said, well, my spouse doesn't want anything to do with this optimization piece, what I'm going to tell you is that is a sign right there, that just tap you on the shoulder that you're not involving relationships or intention. Because when we start having the relationship and intention conversation, couples come together in a unified way that now both spouses are engaged in the optimization, because it is not only about today, but it is about the impact that we're making for 100 plus years. So that is first and foremost. So then how do we think about that? Well, internally, how do we invest in our employees? How do we take care of them in a way? We're about to go into an event that we do it's all these shameless plugs today. We've got our Kingdom operating system. Inside of our Kingdom operating system, we take our business owners on 2 separate adventures that we call Sunrise, that are about truly understanding an owner and a spouse together, about truly understanding what God is awakening inside of them for their vision, for their family and their business, trying to help them uncover that 100 plus years as they step into their business. And so we're taking the entire staff through that next week. And that's a regular thing that we bring on new staff members and things like that. They'll get to come in and experience, because at the end of the day, for us, our core values, which core values have to do with relationships, are how do we love, how do we serve, how do we impact, and how do we transform? Well, guess what's going to happen inside of, you haven't been through it yet. Guess what's going to happen inside the Sunrise experience? We're going to talk about what does love look like and how do you experience that? What does service look like and how do you experience that? How do you have impact and what does that look like? And then we're going to have a separate experience, which just in and of itself is about the actual transformation. And with all of that coming together, we're going to have a time for 2 weeks where everybody's not working, right? And we've got another experience, called Quest, which is 5 days of chasing after the heart of God, which is completely optional inside of our company. But for those 5 days, for anyone who chooses to go inside of our company, it's as if they're at work. So we're investing in the heart and the minds and the spirit of the people who are here, because what do we know? As the relationships are stronger, as someone becomes healthier, not only do they serve other families healthier, but they also benefit the organization healthier, because my vision is, how does this business go for 100 plus years? Guess what? I'm not going to be here. Wow. So how do we prepare the business? How do I prepare my own family?
Yes.
For that.
And here's what I find in my experience of work with the Kingdom ROI now for 3 years. There's always this constant temptation to neglect the relationship and just focus on the optimization. So even as we serve families, sometimes the optimization portion can happen rather quickly. Let's just be honest. We have an amazing team.
We do. Yep.
They do amazing work. And then once that's done, jumping on the cheese kind of situation to where, oh man, the optimization is done. We're good. And then they neglect the fact that you not only need an advocate for the optimization, you need an advocate for the relationships. Because when it comes to the relationships are the long-term impact.
They are.
Financial situations will change.
That's right.
It's evolving. Right. But with relationships, it's almost like paddling upstream.
It definitely is like paddling upstream.
As soon as you take the oar out of the water, you're going to drift.
That's right.
So with the relationships, it's something that you constantly have to work on. And I'm a recipient of the intentionality of Kingdom ROI in investing in its employees. So when you think about 2 weeks of your employees not working, that's a number investment.
Right.
When they're coming to work to get poured into and things that are going to benefit them and their families, that's a significant number investment, but it's so worth it, because what we're developing, what I'm seeing even now is, leadership.
Yeah.
The table of leadership is rising within our organization, and it's getting to the point where things are even getting taken off your plate because people are stepping up and you're giving them an opportunity to do that. So I just want to encourage everyone listening. You may think, how do I know How do I know if I'm doing well with the R in the Kingdom ROI method? A great way to know is by taking the Great Wealth Heist Assessment. This is just not an optimization financial assessment. This will evaluate the health of your relationships to let you see where you're at, even when it comes to the clarity of your mission, vision, and values for your relationship. So I encourage you to go into the description, download the Great Wealth Heist Assessment, complete that, and we would love to have a conversation with you about it, about your results. So I encourage you to lean into that.
Well, I mean, here's the other interesting thing, because this is like what comes next. So I say I do the assessment, is I have a phone call with Chris, because what we found is people who run the assessment is like, man, this isn't what I thought. Then we get into something we call an impact and abundance map. And we go do the impact and abundance map, 80 to 90% of our families, we go in and we look at the optimization in light of your intention and your relationships. And 80 to 90% worth of people who look at that make one of two comments when they're done looking at their map. That's not what I thought was going to happen, or that's not what I want to have happen, right? Just a significant number of people are seeing the results coming out of that map. So it's one thing to know, and then it's one thing to have an idea that, man, I'm not doing well on this heist. It's another thing to actually then look at what you've already put together. And it's sometimes I get it, right? Like you've worked so hard on the optimization and everyone wants to believe they're done. I'm finished. The optimization is over. It's like, well, not really, because this optimization doesn't get you 100 plus years worth of intention. What it actually gets you is unintended consequences and unrealized costs that you don't realize are showing up inside of your plan. And that's part of what we do inside of that map is let's go look at the unrealized cost of staying, you know, where you are and what you're doing. So, I mean, that gets to be an important piece. I don't want to hijack too much, but I do want to come back because I was thinking about this the other day, or just a moment ago about the relationship side of things. And you were like, you know, what are some things some people can do, or how do you know? I'm going to give you one like real quick example of something from a relationship standpoint. There's a super important part of what happens inside of my own family, but was birthed out of intention. Okay, so 5-6 years ago, Clayton went off to Purdue to go to school. And he had been in our home, so I would see him every single day and have a chance to pour into him and have a chance to have conversations. And most mornings we'd eat breakfast together. And I was like, we're not going to get a chance to do that anymore. And I just had a thought for a minute is if we don't schedule something on the calendar, then when are we going to talk? Because he's going to get busy, I'm going to get busy. And if we don't have something on the calendar, when are we ever going to talk? So before I dropped him off at college, I was like, when can we schedule something? And to this day, we have an hour once a week where we are scheduled to get on the phone and have a conversation about how things are going. Is an hour, should it be more? I don't know, but at least we have some intentional time and we try not to miss it. Sometimes we do. It gets moved around. It was really funny. This last Sunday, he was like, can you go at 3? No, now can you go at 4? No, now can you go at 6? I mean, he was moving around because he was helping someone. Fortunately, my day was a little bit more flexible, but you know, we did it with Austin when we dropped him off. We just dropped Grayson off at TCU. And she's been like, I don't know about this time or this. So, but we've been having our regular calls. And so I'm able to stay engaged and in contact and in relationship with my kids. And what I know is it would be really, really easy not to schedule that time and then wake up 4 weeks later and I haven't talked to my kid. And the relationship starts to fall apart. Why? Not because of anything on purpose, but because I wasn't what? Intentional. It's the intention into the relationship and then you go, well, what is that going to reap? I don't know, right? It would be really easy to go, hey, I found this tax savings thing and it reaped this much in tax return for you right now. I don't know what it's going to reap, but I also don't know what it would. The other question is, what could it cost me if I'm not having those phone calls on a regular basis? And that's the stuff that is harder to measure. But man, if I want this to go for 100 plus years, I cannot neglect.
That's right. So a lack of intention will cost you greatly.
Absolutely.
In the long run.
Yeah.
And I feel like part of our mission here at Kingdom ROI is to just expose how people say ignorance is bliss.
Mm-hmm.
We're bringing people out of ignorance and letting them see here is what really is happening. And now it's your choice whether you're going to allow this destruction to happen, this destruction of your marriage, destruction in your family, destruction in the optimization, the business. Like there is something that you can do about it, and it requires intentionality.
Well, this is a reason why I call it the Great Wealth Heist, right? So a heist takes place while you're distracted. Yes or no?
Yes.
Right? I mean, nobody robs you and takes that much from you right in front of your face. You go, stop that. No, you don't see it. That is the point of the Great Wealth Heist. The Great Wealth Heist is the fact that the world has us so distracted on optimization that we're losing it all out the back end to the institutions and the government who have no interest in fixing it, because if they leave it alone, it'll go to them anyway, right? They have no interest in fixing the problem, and it's a heist because it is the thing you don't see happening. If you could see it, it wouldn't be a heist.
That's right. That's right. That's why we're giving people the red pill.
That's right.
That's a Matrix reference. Well, this has been an awesome episode. And again, I want to encourage you one last time. I'm actually begging you at this point. It's not going to cost you anything to go fill out the Great Wealth Heist Assessment. We want you to know. We don't want you living life just being a participant in the heist without knowing it. We want you to know it, but we also want to give you the tools and the information you need to achieve 100 plus years of abundance and impact. So this has been another episode of the Kingdom ROI Podcast. Thank you for tuning in. And if you would like this video, follow us, and most importantly, share with a friend so they can know what's happening with this heist as well. Thank you for tuning in to the Kingdom ROI Podcast.